looks like we are good to go. Am I correct?
You are cleared.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will go ahead and call to order the Planning Commission meeting for tonight, June 16th, 2020. Currently, we have 5 members of the Planning Commission in attendance, with Commissioner Shelton currently excused, still pending our 6th. So we'll go ahead and jump into our first item here, which is a review and request for an approval of the minutes from our previous meeting of June 2nd. Any conversation or discussion or motions, guys?
I'll make a motion.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Hatch.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Thomas. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Moving on to our next item then is a review of the text amendment from the end of May regarding the micro wireless facilities and small wireless facilities. We already had the public hearing on this, so we're just looking for a review of some of the changes that we discussed with Mr. McCandless. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great, thanks. What I'm going to do is just share my screen. I've just got a couple of slides. So you should see that now.
Yep.
Okay, so this item was continued from our the May 19th meeting. What we talked about at that time, we had a couple of different kinds of utility poles for the small and micro wireless telecommunication facilities. We initially had 4, but we've whittled that down to 3 because since that meeting on May 19th, we met with some of the carriers that had some concern just to address some of their issues and work through those. The issues weren't substantial, but what I'll do is just kind of walk you through those. So we're kind of looking at 3 different pole options. So there's the new pole, there's an antenna and electrical equipment that are located on an existing utility pole. So these are the wires right here. This would be where the antenna would be mounted, and then the associated electrical equipment. And then we have street lights, and those can either be existing street lights or they can be just a replacement pole with a street light, and then the antenna on top of that. Let me widen this out. So just a couple of things. The maximum height on a new pole is 50 feet high. The maximum antenna size would be 6 cubic feet, and then your maximum electrical equipment would be 20 inches wide by 60 inches high. See if I can move the screen. The other thing we talked about was a maximum extension on top of a pole of 10 feet, so they don't have something that is really tall or an extension that exceeds that 10 foot. This right here is what we did is in the ordinance that we included in your packet. What I did is just highlighted the differences between the text that you originally saw on the 16th and then following the carriers, or the discussions with the carriers, what we added or changed. And we did get, I think we did get some other things that we did add at the request of one of the commissioners. This is just an example. It says, unless otherwise allowed in the city and in writing, the structure should be not be located directly in front of any, I need to move something here, any main building. We also we eliminated F, required clearances from any existing utility line shall be provided. And what we did is we just added that to H down here. That it's got antennas and equipment attached to any existing utility pole shall maintain all safety clearance requirements. And then we talked about the antenna enclosure shall not exceed 6 cubic feet. The carriers requested that item G be removed, and this is up to you, commissioners, whether or not you think it needs to be kept in place, but their concern was that it was pretty ambiguous. One of the things that we will be doing is when a carrier submits an application is that we'll be looking for locations that will try to minimize any impacts to any adjoining uses such as businesses, because we don't want to be in front of driveways or pedestrian accesses or those kinds of things. So those are some of the things that we do look at when they come in for an application, and some of those things are negotiated. But when it talks about in item G, it says care should be taken to locate the facility such that it does not negatively impact any businesses. So what we will do is work through that when an application comes in. Unless otherwise allowed by the city, all power lines, wires, and cables leading to facilities shall be undergrounded. The carriers were concerned that there may be cases where if you got an existing pole, for example, and they run those leads or the electrical lines directly that are just kind of a short ways away from that, we can take a look at that. So it's just kind of an out. But generally speaking, I think we would expect that all the power lines be underground and just to avoid the clutter. The number 9 is a section that was just taken out of that I added because it was just a state code requirement. And this is just exactly what it says. It says an antenna of small wireless facilities may not extend more than 10 feet above the top of the utility pole that existed on or before September 1st, 2018. So they made that a date specific on it. These are the changes that we made to the new or replacement poles. When we had initially talked, or when we talked the last time, we had recommended that the electrical equipment shroud not exceed 49 inches high by 19 inches wide by 13 inches deep. And the carrier said we just can't technically do that. We need something that's a little larger. And so rather than 49 inches, we extended that up in another 11 inches. So it's 60 inches high by 20 inches wide. So you just need to, if that's basically, 5 feet high by just shy of 2 feet. So it's not a huge difference between what we had initially proposed and what the carriers need to technically fit that equipment down in that shroud. On the antenna shroud, on number 5, it said the antenna shroud shall have a minimum 14-inch outer diameter and the maximum height shall be 10 feet. So what we have said now, or what we've changed it to, is the antenna shroud shall have a minimum 18-inch outer diameter and shall not exceed 6 cubic feet in volume. And the maximum height again shall be 10 feet. So we did increase that just slightly to fit the carrier's technical needs. With this one, let's see. Look here, I've got something in the way. Oh, what this was is just to clarify that what we wanted is to make the transition between the electrical equipment, the shroud covering the electrical equipment, to the pole. We wanted that to be kind of a nice transition rather than just kind of a flat plate or flat horizontal plate. So we thought that to make them a little more attractive, that we ought to have something in there that says really that what we need is kind of a transition between the electrical equipment and that pole. So those are the changes since the last meeting. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you'd have.
Excellent. Any questions for Ray?
I have just a few, if that's all right.
It's all yours.
Okay, so Ray, and I appreciate it. You actually answered quite a few of these questions within the presentation that you just provided, which was enlightening. Thank you. You've obviously spent quite a bit of time with this. And I appreciate the incorporation on that note about city approval in writing. One of the questions I have is regarding that specifically. So I'm going to give an example from where I work. A lot of the time I end up with people that will come in and read something that says something to the effect of, you need approval from the organization. And they will take that as just some employee happened to say something to them out at their house, and they say, oh, well, it's been approved. And so we're very careful anytime we craft these kinds of things to make sure there's a very direct process, and it's very clear that no, just some employee saying you can do this doesn't count. It has to be in writing. It has to be maybe in writing from a certain individual. And I think that's the crux of that comment, maybe of that question. Do we have something like that already in place elsewhere in the code? So anytime we say requires the city's approval, that we've already set that up and said this is how that approval happens?
That approval this is a little bit different because it is within the public way. And so it's not just one employee that's making the decision. It's from several different departments within the city, because you've got the right-of-way people. There's certain types of poles that have to be installed to meet the city's standards. So it's not just one employee sitting down and saying with the carriers and saying, oh, this looks great. There's a lot more that goes into that because those locations have to be chosen carefully so that they're not impacting any utility lines or underground utility lines. And so what we do is when they come in for a submittal, then we'll actually sit down in a meeting with representatives from the different groups, and then just make sure that that location not only complies not only with this code, but also the other codes that would apply.
There's also in Title 8, which is a different ordinance that intertwines with this ordinance. It does give specific responsibility to the zoning administrator and other city officials. So that's the more process-oriented part of the code, Title 8. This portion here is the more specific, what does the pole look like? So, but the process part is, you're right, it's in a different part of the code.
Okay. And that makes sense. So we're absolutely covered. I feel good about that. I had a question on the RF certification letter, which was in 5C. Let's see, it wasn't 5. Let's see. C1A.
Yes.
So I noticed the two prior to that require some form of, let's see, sorry, the two after that. So that we have a licensed electrical engineer that has to provide a certification, and a licensed professional engineer that has to provide a separate certification. On the RF certification letter, we don't say anything about a licensed RF or certified RF individual. And I wasn't sure, is that something that there is a certification for, and does it really need to be included with this?
I don't have the answer to that. But if there is one, then we can certainly insert that just to make sure that that's covered.
Okay. And I think that would be appropriate. Just, you don't want somebody just writing a letter, if it was the applicant writing a letter saying, yeah, it's RF certified. I can tell you that. It'd be nice to know that they do have that certification if one exists. You mentioned the September 1st, 2018 date is just something from the state code. Do we have any idea why that particular date? It's more of a curiosity at this point.
I just think that's when the legislature adopted it.
Okay. And then the last question I had is the state code allows no more than, I think it's 28 cubic feet for all of the materials, the antenna shroud, the equipment shroud, everything else. And going through, we've got the 60-inch high by 20-inch wide for the electrical equipment shroud, which comes up to about almost 11 cubic feet. We've got I think 6 cubic feet for the pole shroud.
Right.
That falls within the 28 easily. Is there other equipment outside of that is going to eat up the rest of that 28?
Generally not, not unless it's some kind of, power, some kind of a power meter. But I don't think there is. I mean, the carriers didn't seem to think that, indicate that there was anything that was larger that was needed.
So with the code that we're putting forward, we're going to say, and I'm rounding numbers here roughly. We're going to say, even though state code says you can have up to 28 cubic feet, our code really says you can only have up to 17.
Right.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that, especially since you've already spoken to the different carriers. I just wanted to make sure that was I was understanding that correctly. So thank you. That was
Sure.
all I had. I like this. I like the approach. There's obviously a lot of time and effort that was put into it.
Thanks.
Excellent. Any other questions?
Not a question, just a comment.
Go for it.
I like this. It's a lot more polished. I appreciate the time and effort that went into it. This is exactly what I think we were looking for last meeting. So thank you.
Sure.
And unless anybody has anything else, this is not a public hearing. I would be ready with a motion unless anybody has anything else.
Let's go for it.
I'm getting there. It's a long one. All right, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to approve the proposed text amendment, which would amend Title 13 of the 2009 West Jordan City Code to include micro wireless facility and small wireless facility in Chapter 16, low power radio service antennas.
I'll second.
Excellent. We have a motion by Commissioner England, seconded by Commissioner Allen. Any discussion to the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we are unanimous. Thank you, Ray. Moving right
you.
along, we've got our first public hearing, which is Big O Tires, 7761 South, 3200 West, and a preliminary site planning conditional use permit in an SC2 zone. KEC Properties, Carrie Coleman is our applicant. Let me see. I can't remember if I saw. Carrie
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. You beat me to the paperwork here. So the floor is all yours, sir.
I'll keep it brief. Thank you very much for your time this evening. My name's Corey Coleman, and my brother and I own 6 Big O Tire stores, one of which is the existing Big O Tires there in West Jordan. It's a very small facility, and we'd like to expand and add another building behind our current building. So our current building is to the east of this property on the map. We bought the Tesoro gas station and so have submitted a site plan for about a 7,500 square foot building. We'll use both properties for our operations. We don't anticipate traffic increasing very much. In fact, because the Tesoro was operating there, we actually expect traffic to be less than what it was before. Because we'll have sufficient number of bays to operate out of. Everything should be, all the repairs and work will be completed inside the buildings. That should minimize any noise impact that we currently have. We've only owned the current Big O since August of 2019. And trying to think if there's anything at parking. Currently, we only have 18 parking stalls at our current Big O facility. This new facility will add another 48 parking stalls. So there's more than enough parking for what our operations do. We average about 55 cars a day. So we should be a good neighbor and have a beautiful facility there for the residents to use. And that's it.
Very well. Any questions for the applicant?
Just one, if I may. Will this speed up the time to get my tires rotated?
It'll be a lot faster.
Because it's a nightmare right now.
I don't know how they do it. I don't know how the employees handle what they do with such a tight postage stamp to work out of. So yes, this is going to facilitate a lot of our operational problems we have now.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, we'll turn the time over to Lisa for any further enlightenment.
Lisa doesn't have a whole lot of other further enlightenment.
We're okay with that. I think you did a good job.
The applicant did a really good job. They meet all the zoning requirements. They've met all the code requirements. They've been really good to work with and getting any changes that we've asked for. One of the changes that was suggested by the DRC was, there were comments received because we're doing the electronic reviews now. So that's east elevation, right, get my cursor over here, right here. They wanted to see that broken up a little, and it's hard to see in this small, I might even, oh, okay, it was on the wrong screen. It's hard to see. It was hard to see on this small picture, but they did add another little pop out right here to break it up a little bit. So that's the east side of the building. So
that's as you're driving west down 78th, and you're going to see the back of the building.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So they did add that for DRC comments. And that is about all that we have. Take any questions.
Any other questions for staff?
I think I've got one, maybe two.
Go for it.
See if I can find the drawing here that I was looking at. Okay, so the site plan, we're burying, or we'll bury the power poles in front of the building. When I say in front, north side of 7800 South. Will there be any new poles that go up as a result of that, or are they going to bury it from an existing pole to another existing pole?
That would really be a question for Nate. Is he here?
Nate's not here. I'm filling in for Nate. This is David Cottle in engineering. But I can't answer that for certain. I can probably look at an aerial real quick and find out for you. But typically when they bury the power lines, they are adding poles to the property line and then shooting down into the ground. So unless we happen to have poles directly at the property line, I would imagine they'd be adding poles.
So
Okay.
can I add something here? I've made the determination on this that they don't have to underground the lines. So,
Oh, there you go.
so
Okay. And I'm completely fine with that. That's where I was going. The poles are actually shown on the site plan, and I'm sure this is what Larry was saying. But if you were to bury it, you'd have to go all the way underneath 32nd West. I don't think you could put a pole up on that corner to bring it up.
We couldn't force them to go into the road anyway. They just have to go to the edge of the property line. Then it would have to span. So it would, in my estimation, look even worse because you would have poles, at one edge of the property, and then 300 feet, then you have another pole, and then it goes across, 3200 West. But in this, they don't meet the frontage requirements to have to do that because it's amended site plan. So
I like it. Okay. The other question I had is, this appears, at least in the drawings, to be a taller building. Is that correct? Than what's there currently?
Yes.
So with that, and we've got the wall pack lights on there, will the wall pack lights end up being higher vertically elevation than the existing building lights? In other words, we're going to have a problem with light pollution getting across the fence to the north.
No, they have submitted a photometric and they meet the requirements of being less than 1 foot candle at the property line.
Perfect. Okay. One last question I have, and I drove by that site. In fact, I drive by there very regularly. But I drove by there, I think it was last Wednesday morning, and as I went by, there was a pile of about 8 tires sitting on the southwest corner of the building. And as I look over the proposed setup on that, I'm just curious, where will tires end up being stored on the site, such that they're screened from traffic?
I will defer that one to Corey, but one of the conditions of approval in the staff report was that they comply with all the disposal, the hazardous waste disposal, and tires are one of those. So with that, I'll leave it to Corey to answer where he's actually going to put those things.
There's a trailer that's located in one of the parking stalls. And when you saw that, the trailer had probably just been picked up to go haul away, and then they bring it back empty to load those. So that was probably just a temporary situation, but typically they're in a drop trailer, so they're enclosed and they get off the property very quickly. We typically would not be storing any tires outside.
And then that would violate the Salt Lake Valley Health Department ordinance because of mosquito breeding and stagnant water. Because if you ever been around tires, they tend to catch rainwater very well, and it stays there for a long time. And so the county years ago has made that tires from tire shops or mechanic shops have to be covered so rain doesn't get into the tires. So.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, one of the parking stalls on this site is going to be, it will have a trailer on it that those tires are going into as they're getting hauled off.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's a truck trailer, more of a delivery trailer. We have them at all of our facilities now versus what they used to do is just stack them all by the dumpster and under an awning. We don't do that anymore. The trailers worked great.
Okay. That's all I've got. I like the site plan. It'll be nice to have some bigger business sitting on that corner again after that gas station went out. So thank you for your time and for all the answers.
Thank you.
I've got just one other quick question, and I may have just missed this being distracted. What's happening with the existing facility?
We'll continue to use that for overflow.
Okay, so you'll own both buildings?
Correct.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions for staff or for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing portion of this item. And so if anybody is here to speak on this item specifically, please just give me a little raised hand on your profile there, and I'll give you permission to talk. Okay, I don't see any, so we'll close the public hearing for this item, bring it back to the Planning Commission for any additional discussion or possible motion.
I'll make a motion.
Please do.
I move the Planning Commission approve the preliminary site plan and conditional use permit for Big O Tires located at 7761 South, 3200 West in the SC2 Community Shopping Center, critical zone of South Valley Regional Airport, zone district subject to the conditions 1 through 5.
I'll second that.
Excellent. Motion by Commissioner Thomas, seconded by Commissioner England. And Mr. Murray, I don't know if this matters. He said critical zone. It says conical on our thing here. I don't know if that matters. I don't know if that matters or not, but I wanted to make sure we got it right.
I think we're fine, especially if we've cleared it up right now.
Okay, perfect.
I need new glasses.
I have to move everything like 3 feet away from me so I can see it. It's all right. I feel your pain. All right, any discussion to the motion by Commissioner Thomas, seconded by Commissioner England? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are unanimous. Thank you for your support of doing business here in West Jordan. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
All right, this brings us to our next item, which is Moonbeam Auto Sales / the Used Car Factory, 8261 South Redwood Road, conditional use permit for motor vehicle sales and service in a CG zone. Moonbeam Auto Sales / the Used Car Factory. Harrison Cleland is the applicant, and I did see Mr. Cleveland on our list of attendees. So it looks like you are free to speak, sir.
How's it going?
There you are. Good. The floor is yours, sir.
So my name's Harrison. Applying for our business in West Jordan, I guess. It would just be for the repair and sales of used passenger vehicles. Is there anything else that would really need to be known?
This time is for you to tell us whatever you think we need to know in order to gain our approval on your application. So if you feel like that's good, we'll let Mr. Forsyth give us the rest of the story.
Okay.
Any questions for the applicant, guys?
I just have one on when he says repair, there's repair limited and repair, I can't remember the verbiage on it, major or whatever it is on the zoning. What types of repairs will you be doing on vehicles there?
So yeah, I had seen that as well with the zoning before. We wouldn't be getting into anything major, more just basic maintenance stuff. If we have to get like tires or brakes put on the car, oil changes, fluid exchanges, stuff like that.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I got one question.
Go for it.
Kind of goes along with the repairs. You would be doing no painting whatsoever, even minor?
No body work at all.
Okay.
Any other questions?
As long as we're talking about repairs, sorry, Commissioner. I understand this is a site that's being converted from a previous use. Is everything in place for the proper disposal of oil and other fluids?
Yes, we had actually moved to this location after being in our previous location for just over 4 years. And with that, we had that same service come in. It's called Emerald Oil Services. So they're the guys, they take all of our used antifreeze, used oil, all the other like hazardous waste that we would have is cleaned up as like best as it can.
That it, Ammon?
For now, yeah.
Okay, just making sure. I thought I saw your mouth moving again as you were turning away, so just making sure. All right, any other questions for the applicant? All right, Mr. Forsyth, this one's yours.
Right. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so I'll just kind of fill in some more of the details. So just to give a little bit of context, this is the site's located just off of Redwood Road and south of the 8200 South traffic signal there. So some of the surrounding areas to the east, you've got a single family residential neighborhood. To the south, you've got couple single family residential properties and a sixplex apartment building. To the north is a UDOT detention basin, and then to the west is Redwood Road. So, if there is any impact, most of it's obviously going to be, we're going to consider the areas to the east and to the south. So,
Seems to me this is going to be a lower impact.
Yeah, so the zoning, it's located in a CG zone, which is the city's general commercial zone. So most of the businesses we see here are kind of your typical retail restaurants, things like that. But it does kind of expand on some of those uses in that it allows things like vehicle sales and vehicle repair to a limited extent. So to kind of go back to what we were talking about with the vehicle repair. So motor vehicle sales are a conditional use in this zone, but the business will also be doing some vehicle repair. And so the city code has broken that up into two types. One is a limited repair, which basically includes things like brakes, oil changes, minor engine repairs, transmission repairs, things like that. But and then there's a general repair, which deals mostly with body work, engine rebuilding, or major work like that. And so the limited repair is permitted as of right in that zone. The general repair is not allowed at all. So I'm glad we made that clarification, and the applicant did a good job of explaining that and making sure that they're going to be compliant with that. So the way this is set up, basically you've got just one other business that's located here, which is True Green. They're a landscaping maintenance company. And so Moonbeam Auto Sales and the used car factory are going to take over the space that was previously occupied by Premier Vehicle Repair. And so you can kind of see here on the map, they got a small office that'll be used for most their sales, transactions, and reception area. And they've got kind of a large repair shop, which is basically exactly the same that was used by Premier. So that'll be used mostly to just get the cars ready and doing minor repairs so that they're in good running shape and are available for sale. And so then they've got an outdoor vehicle storage area that's mostly going to be used for either cars that are in for repairs or excess inventory if they have any. We're probably anticipating some vehicle display out on Redwood Road. The site's set up pretty well for that. They've got quite a few parking spaces there, as you can see, and then most of the parking spaces adjacent to the building that can be used for customers. And so that setup should work quite well. As far as security goes, they've got 2 accesses onto Redwood Road that have crash gates installed on them. So in order to keep the car secure and prevent theft, they can actually lock those at night. So and there's a retaining wall right there where the cars are adjacent to on the frontage. So yeah, once those gates are locked, there's no way to get a car out of there. So that should help with security as well as the lighting. I think they've done a pretty good job with that. So, and looking at the parking, I know this photo kind of shows a lot of cars there, but as far as the required parking, they're only required to have 64 spaces. They currently have 70 with some space to add even more. So we don't think there's really much of a parking issue there. They should have enough. The other impact we looked at was possible noise coming from there. There's a couple bay doors that face the residential areas. Now there is an existing 6-foot masonry wall that should block most of that sound, but they will need to make sure that they're being in compliance with Salt Lake County noise ordinances, making sure that that's not going to become a problem for the residents, particularly with hours that extend into 8 p.m. So I want to make sure we're good on that. So based on those findings, staff's recommending approval of the conditional use permit.
Okay, any questions for the staff?
I have a question, Chair.
Yeah.
I drove past this today, and the landscaping, what are the plans to improve on, well, it won't be hard to improve on it, but to create a better landscaping frontage? Is that a requirement at all?
We haven't included that on the conditions of approval. The applicant's just leasing the space, so I don't know if they have any plans to work with the owner, but yeah, as far as I know, there's no plans to truly add anything.
I'm not sure that would make sense. It would prohibit them from showing the vehicles that will be parked there along Redwood anyway.
I'm thinking of removing it, or it's just weeds and scrub right now. It looks abandoned. So I think, just to enhance the viewing of the cars, you need either to remove it or create something that looks better than what it is.
That's a good point.
Sure, if I add something there.
Yeah.
So since we basically share the building with True Green, just in the last week, I was actually talking to those guys, and with sharing the building, they're like, oh, we're more than happy to help. So we've been working with them. Just 2 days ago, last Saturday, we had gone out and replaced about 4 different sprinkler heads. We had upped the actual line pressure to the sprinklers as well, because it wasn't quite getting to all the grass. And then I know the worst of it is the northwest corner of our lot. We'll probably just end up either resodding that or doing a zero scape and just getting rock in there to replace all of the, it's basically dirt in just that one corner. But I mean, as far as what's in front of our building and closest to Redwood Road, the main strip is fairly nice grass. There was a couple weeds and stuff, so we've put fertilizer down to kill that. But I would say if you were even to just drive by later tonight, you would say a pretty big difference.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
I'm debating on whether or not to bring this up. I guess, Mr. Forsyth, you can talk a little bit more to this. I look at this image and I'm not sold on the parking. I understand that the math is working out. I also drove by the spot, by the area, and there's some fencing and other things in place to, I think, keep the backyard separate, and they can lock it up at night. I'm having a hard time visualizing how this is going to work. I know that's a really vague comment. Maybe you could weigh in on that and explain maybe what it is that we should be seeing here, or even Mr. Cleland, if you can explain roughly where you're looking at showcasing vehicles versus the outdoor storage. I look at how many vehicles are in that image right there, and I wonder how are people going to actually come in to take a look at things.
So as you can see, the image is probably a year or two old. I'm sure it was when Premier was still the company that was here before. Basically, the office area that's outlined in red, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars that are just to the top of that picture. That's what was going to be basically reserved for the customer parking. Just in front of the office doors, there's 2 handicap spots that we've been keeping open for customer parking as well. The cars that are frontline ready, as it's called, are ready to be sold. We usually park in front of the yellow repair area, and then also against Redwood Road. So the cars that are parked horizontally, those are the frontline ready cars. Then towards the bottom of the paper in the front parking lot where there's those would be horizontal, I guess. we have cars going vertically there. So we're able to go from fitting only like 2 cars to 5 or 6. And then the outdoor vehicle storage, there used to be like a huge storage container that Premier was using. Just in that space alone, we're able to fit 3 cars. And then there's also a tree that covers a lot of the parking that you can see. Yeah, and the outdoor vehicle storage are the cars that are needing like more of the repair side of things, or cars that we haven't gotten to. So they'll be pulled into the shop, repaired, and then pulled out of the repair shop onto the front line. And it's just like the process never stops. We have cars that are always being repaired. We have like, no, that this truck won't be there, so there's a driveway. Yeah. Like any given week, we'll sell between like 5 and 10 cars. And so it's like, as we sell cars, we just try and replace those with new cars. In the picture as well, my coworker pointed out, there's like a giant truck that's in between the 2 cars. That's not there, of course. So you have a full driveway to drive through that parking lot either way.
Okay. So what you're saying, I mean, between that comment as well as discussing the landscaping that Commissioner Hatch brought up, is the site's going to be looking a lot better, a lot more attractive, and really benefiting not just the area but the city.
Yeah, correct. The biggest draw to that was with this whole pandemic thing as well. I mean, we had just moved into this location officially in like mid-March, I think. So there was like a lot of money that we had to put for the initial deposit and all of that. And we had it all like set up to, we'll get in there and be able to do all these reconditioning things. And then with that, the decline of sales dropped and all of that. So kind of put it on the back burner, but we're on our feet again now. So all of that will be taken care of a lot sooner rather than later.
I'm glad to hear that. I know bouncing back is a little bit difficult right now. So I really appreciate coming in and cleaning up the area and the work. I'm looking forward to driving by this in a year and seeing a completely different looking location than what we're seeing now. So thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Any other questions? Hey, Mark, I just had a quick clarification. Ammon brought up the parking. Is that parking requirement that you discussed because of the size of the building or because of the number of cars that we're anticipating them having? Because I'm just curious what the determining number is there.
So it's based on the uses on site and the square footage that they occupy. So that takes into account both True Green and Moonbeam Auto Sales.
So it has nothing to do with the anticipated number of vehicles they might have on site.
No, it's based solely on the use and square footage.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. That's just something I was trying to noodle through in my head. Any other questions for the applicant or for the staff? Okay, this is another one of our public hearings. So we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for this item. And if there's something that you'd like to share, just give me a little wave. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring this back to the Planning Commission for any further discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Please do.
Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit for Moonbeam Auto Sales, the used car factory located at 8261 South Redwood Road in a CG zone, with the conditions of approval listed on page 2 of this report.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Hatch, seconded by Commissioner England. And as we discussed the conditions, Mark, I just had one other question that I couldn't see. You mentioned noise ordinance. Is that something that is implied just in city code, or is that something that needs to be specifically spelled out in the conditions? Because I didn't see anything about noise in the conditions of approval.
Yeah, so those are.
It's number 6.
Oh,
I should have read it 4 times instead of just 3. I'm sorry. I'll withdraw my comment. Any other discussion to the motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Thanks, guys, for your faith
Hang
in
on.
West Jordan. We appreciate you guys coming in.
Well, thank you.
This brings us to our last item, which just needs to be continued until our next meeting. So if anybody wants to make a motion to do that.
I'll make a motion to postpone or continue this to the July 7th meeting. That is the Oak View Industrial Park MJ Project 1 subdivision.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Allen. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. That brings us to the end of our meeting, guys. And, you know, if anybody wants to move to adjourn.
Motion
I'll move
adjourn.
to,
I have a question before we adjourn, Chair.
We have a move to adjourn by acclamation. We are adjourned until
there's a
July
question.
7th.
Can I ask
Oh,
a question?
yeah.
How much longer are we doing virtual meetings? Is there a plan in place that we get to go back to City Hall?
Well, guess what? We have the mayor on here, so I just unmuted him and let him chat if he wants to.
We actually talked about that earlier today, and the council is planning on going and starting to meet in person in July. When do you guys want to start moving? Because we're setting up the area for the audience to keep our 6-foot distancing away. The problem we have is on the dais, keeping you 6 feet away up there. So, but we're still going to try and make it work. Because we can go up to 50 people. So if we get more than 50, then we need to let them work virtually.
We'll just have to instruct staff to make sure they don't give us any contentious applications and we'll be fine.
That's right.
We've had one meeting with that many people, so I think we're okay on 50 people.
I think you'll be okay too. So if you want, we could try and do it for July like the council is doing, or if you want, because your next meeting's probably not till July anyway. Do you have a second one in June?
No, this was our second one for the month. Our next meeting is July 7th. So I would be okay with moving back to and seeing if we can do it in person. Anybody else have an issue with that?
I'm good.
Nope, that sounds great.
Okay.
So
what about our replacement, Mayor?
I'm working on that. I should have that for you for your next meeting.
Awesome. We're excited. Great. Any other questions then?
But I see you are missing somebody else today too. It's
Yeah, Kent Shelton seems to be missing. So perfect. Well, if there's nothing else, we've already had a motion to adjourn, so we'll go ahead and adjourn.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. See ya.
We'll see you in a couple weeks.
have a good evening.
Bye.